We're on to the final hour of the show today, Monday. Happy Monday, wherever you're tuned in. And in this hour, we want to talk about what we've been witnessing around the country, particularly these counties of Nairobi and Kiambu. Buildings coming up, buildings have structural defects, buildings come tumbling down. In one unfortunate incident, a building came tumbling down in Ruiru last week, and people who are in an adjacent plot sleeping in their own home,
peacefully,
which did not have any structural defect, were killed. And this is an elderly couple. Today, we are seeing, following the warning that had been issued earlier about a building that was appearing to have some structural issues, the building has now come down. Again in Kiambu County. We have a guest in the studio who's an engineer who's well-versed on these matters. Before we welcome and introduce him, CT Muga looking at his Samsung Galaxy Tab S8 Ultra, which is a big screen. 14 point, how many? 2.6?
Just 6.
14.6
Yes, but we
inches.
are Kenyans, and I can give you a discount. It can be 14 inch.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
You heard it. I can give you
Yeah,
a
good
discount.
discount.
I can't ask for you.
Can be 14 inch.
Yes.
Super AMOLED screen.
Yes, my friend.
Yeah.
And the thing about that AMOLED screen is the clarity. You know, people talk about things coming to life. There are some things which are a joy to have, because even when you write something, or even if you have the S Pen and you're busy scrolling on it, because you actually can scroll and you can even draw, you can doodle on it if you like. It's the clarity that it presents.
Good.
Believe what you see and lay aside what you hear.
Believe what you see.
And lay aside.
Lay aside what you hear.
Yes.
Okay.
That is a proverb from the country of
Western
Western
Sahara.
yes.
Engineer Patrick Simiyu Wambulwa is the chairperson of the Association of Consulting Engineers of Kenya. He is our guest this time. Good morning, engineer.
Morning,
Thank you very much for joining us. Welcome to the hot seat of the Situation Room.
and thank you for inviting me.
Engineer, this one is going to be hot because it's a matter of life and death and investments and incomes and all. You are what engineer are you?
A civil engineer.
A civil engineer. What is this Association of Consulting Engineers?
The association brings together consulting or engineers who are practicing in consulting to speak together on issues that are common to the construction industry or infrastructure industry, if you would say.
So you're bringing together all engineers who are dealing with buildings of houses,
Building,
dams,
all,
roads.
all engineers in all sectors,
Electrical.
roads, electrical, mechanical, those who are in industry, provided they have their practices in consulting.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's a voluntary membership association.
Yes.
What is the difference between the association and the engineers board?
The engineers board is a regulator. It regulates or accredits programs when they are at the university, and it guides the practice before you are a registered engineer, a professional engineer. So the board is a regulator. The association, the Consulting Engineers Association, is a membership. You would call it a business membership organization.
Nah, it's a BMO.
Yeah.
There used to be an institute for engineers.
The Institute for Engineers is still there, and I would call it a learned society. Yeah.
What is it?
It brings together all engineers in the country. You could be in the civil service, you could be in industry, you could be a contractor, you could be at the university or in consulting, but all engineers who are here, who are in Kenya, are open to be members of the Institution of Engineers of Kenya, and it is promoting the engineering discipline,
So
the knowledge and practice of engineering. And it's not focused at business, but the Association of Consulting Engineers is trying to promote the business, the business of consulting engineers.
So when you say an association for engineers, we're talking about the sub-disciplines whether someone is a structural engineer, whether someone's an electrical engineer, they all belong to the same association.
Yes.
Whether you're an electronic engineer, you belong to this same association.
Yes. If you are practicing as a consulting
Yes.
engineer.
Whether you are a software engineer.
Yes.
All of you.
All-
belong
Oh,
to
no, I
this
haven't stopped yet.
association.
Whether you are a biomedical engineer.
Yes.
You want to show us how many engineers you know?
No, I'm actually, you see as you were speaking, I was thinking about the many disciplines that have engineering as a tag to it.
Yes.
There are many
Yes.
disciplines.
Yes.
Even a social engineer.
Yes.
The Engineers Act or rules have tried to break that down. I think we are in excess of 20. But if you are in the developed countries like US, they are approaching almost 50, which are officially recognized and accredited in various universities.
Now, Engineer Simiyu, you have worked in local authorities.
Yes, I started my work at City Hall, City Engineers Department, Structurals section.
What was your job?
My job was to check through structural engineering designs and recommend them before the city engineer could put his hand on to say they are approved for construction.
This means anybody who wants to put up a structure, whether it's a market, a commercial building, a residential building, has to apply to City Hall.
Yes.
And they have to bring in the design of what they want to put up.
Yes.
And it would land on Engineer Simiyu's desk
Yes.
for you to then look and then recommend for approval or rejection
Yes.
to the city engineer.
Yes.
What is it that you are looking for?
I would say when it is in the structural engineering section, it is structural integrity. Yeah. But I would like to go to to say the approvals required, because it is not one approval.
There are several
There
approvals.
are several approvals required before a person or a structure is put up.
Let us start from the beginning.
Yes.
City and I want to put up houses in a piece of rock somewhere.
Yes.
And we need to now go to City Hall to get approval.
Engineer,
Where do we begin?
It's a plot of land. It's him who keeps referring to it as rock.
Yes.
There are a few pebbles here and there, but anyway.
So
Go on.
where you should begin is that you should talk to an architect. That is where you should begin. But for the local authority, and allow me to use that local authority, because what we are talking about applies to all Kenya and not just Nairobi.
Yep.
So the local authority's first point of entry is the planning, spatial planning. That area has been planned for what function in the master plan of that local authority.
Okay.
So that means a local authority should have a master plan, a spatial master plan, putting zones for various uses, industry, schools, religious, residential houses, central business district. So there should be that spatial planning should come first and is guided by the Physical Planning Act.
Okay.
And we have physical planners.
Number two.
So number two is now your architect to take up your dream. What is the function of your building? And what aesthetics are you looking at? And what do you vision? So the architect translates your vision into a functional structure or building.
Okay.
Three.
When the architect is finished with you and you're satisfied, then you would like your structure to stand
Yeah.
the test of time. So the engineer, the structural engineer, comes in now to make the design so that your building can be constructed and it can stand. There is a story without any offense to any religion of Jesus teaching that a wise builder put the house on a rock, and the winds came, the rains came, but it stood. So there should be something like a wise builder, where I do a proper engineering design
Right.
that can withstand not just rain and storm, but to a reasonable extent, even earthquake.
Yeah. That's a structural engineer.
That's a structural engineer.
Has neglected to mention is the other person who was not so wise and what he built on.
Quicksand.
Yes.
Yes, now there is quicksand. And that could mean we have had rain. There was drought, and it was a crisis. Rain comes in for just a few days, and you have, I think we have had like 4 structures
Yep.
Yeah.
within a week,
Yep.
and they go under.
No.
Yeah. So it could be that those people, the design was poor, but it could be the rain.
Okay.
Where they put the structure, the ground may not have been investigated.
Okay. Now, does that process not need to take place as well? This investigation that you're talking about, so that I guess the person who came up with the phrase "come rain, come sunshine,"
Yes.
if you are to put up a building, that you have taken certain things into consideration, that it may be dry today, but if we are going to include the element or the possibility of rain or moisture in the future, this is then what we ought to do to mitigate. Now, it's not something specialist, it is fundamental principle, isn't it?
Yes,
Okay.
the work of a structural engineer includes site investigation, and there is a specialized discipline we call geotechnical engineer.
Okay.
So the structural engineer engages now a geotechnical engineer who is specialized in investigating the ground.
Okay.
And if it is even more complex, the geotechnical engineer will need to work with a geologist
Okay.
to describe that ground, not that you can't build there, but to inform the type of foundation.
But it
That
is
should be-
fundamental. Like
It's-
every time these papers, these people and their rock building, they want to go and get something like that done. This person is included in the process. So we're not
Yes.
talking about some specialized thing. It is standard practice?
Yes,
Okay.
and
So
should
what-
happen.
When they now come to the local authority, you said you start with this special planning department, and you've gotten your architect, your engineer, they've done the design, they've done the structural design. In the approval process, take us through it again.
So within the local authority, there is the approval for planning,
Yep.
to be sure,
Yep.
and the architectural,
Approval.
because also what we should bear in mind, the architect is not concerned with your building only, but also takes care of the surrounding. So like the building where we are saying one building collapse on another building,
Yep.
ideally the architect should study the buildings that surround, so that when I'm designing this building, I am also taking care of the
The
neighboring
next
building.
buildings.
So after the plan will go through architectural approval,
Yeah.
then structural approval,
Approval.
but we also have public health. It should be habitable, that a human being can live in that building. So there should be a public health
So
approval.
What in the plan is going to be looked at by the public?
The public health is looking at ventilation.
Okay.
There should be ventilation,
Lighting.
maybe there are safety issues. Yeah.
Source of water.
Yes.
Or is that not part
the
of it?
source of water, sanitation.
Sanitation.
Yeah.
All this is going
There,
into
there
the
should
public
be.
health.
It should be possible to bring water into the building and to take out the waste that is generated.
Next
What
office?
provision have you provided for fire
Next
safety?
office.
Then I have one. The next office, I think, is not in City Hall. It's the NEMA, the environmental, because this structure has an environmental impact.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it should go through the NEMA
Okay.
approval.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, who oversees to make sure all of these processes have taken place? Like these things that you've told us need to happen, ventilation, etc., etc. There's somebody who comes in and makes sure that this building that you're erecting has 1, 2, 3, isn't it?
Yes.
So who plays the the part of oversight to say, all right, this is the list we've checked, because I assume that there will be a report.
Yes.
After all of this, then somebody has written a report.
The local authority has a committee.
Exactly.
The planning committee, which is supposed to be ultimate.
Yes.
I think the governor for Nairobi mentioned about dissolving one and creating another one. So that committee confirms that this particular plan has walked through
all the stages
all
of
those
approval.
stages of approval.
Without which you cannot lay a single brick.
You shouldn't.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And when they give the approval, the overall approval, it's when the developer should be free to start his construction.
Okay.
But I would like to say a structure or a building collapses because of structural integrity issues.
Okay.
But if we would like to have a scenario where no building is collapsing, then the issues that are involved are complex, are many, and each person should, or each sector or a department should try to play their role, including the media.
Oh, I'm glad you said that.
Yeah.
But before...
And so I would like you, in this discussion, that we are broad.
Of course.
And can
absolutely. So,
speak to all
under
issues.
what circumstances, taking integrity into consideration or not, under what circumstances would a building collapse? I'm sure there would be many. But a building that has reached X level.
Yes.
You said, fundamentally it would be an issue of structural integrity.
Yes.
Now, what would some of those issues be that a building that had reached nth floor then comes down?
Yes.
What would you say would be the problem? Yeah. Looking at it from this engineering point of view, what could have happened?
I would run down some of the things we have been talking about in Nairobi. Some people get a plan approved for 4 stories and they pass up a hill and they see a Chinese is building 13, 9 floors, and they say, okay, I will make mine 7. Now the extra 3 have not been subjected to the structural analysis. And you have not tested whether the foundation will manage the extra 3. So there is that issue.
So this is without coming back to the structural engineer.
Yes, to correct it.
To correct it.
So there is that issue of change of design on site. While I'm constructing, I change the design. That is one.
And this isn't approved.
And that is not approved. And I think these are some of the developers who, when something goes wrong, they go underground because they also know there is something to hide.
That's one issue.
Yeah.
Another one?
There is issue of the foundation that you talked of, inadequate investigation. Generally, people think that there is maram or rock in a given area, and you miss the fact that that rock in your particular place is left with 5 millimeter to a cave. So when you load the structure, then the remaining 5 millimeter you are on rock, yes, but it gives in
to the cave.
So that means we are talking of inadequate site investigation. So it shouldn't. People should not assume. Once you have a site, you should just investigate.
What I'm hearing you say, engineer, is that in many of these instances, the professionals are not involved. Is that what I mean?
Yes, there is the inadequate use of professionals.
The geo whatever guy, geo who?
Geotechnical.
The geotechnical person
engineer,
did not get adequate time or adequate briefing to go and do the work that they should have done.
Yes.
So that then the structural engineer can design a structure that that will stand a 5-story building, which is what you got an approval for in City Hall. Then you have gone and you've seen, Kamau is putting up 12.
Why can't I?
And maybe just put 7. Or there's high demand. People are but now people are asking. So you put up extra. When you put extra, you've not gone back to the engineer.
Yeah.
But engineer, at the construction site, NCA laws regulations demand that you put a signboard
Yes.
that tells us all these people.
Yeah.
As far as I am concerned, I can see developer is so and so, architect is so and so, engineer is so and so, electrical is so and so. So where are they?
Yes. So we have some gaps in the industry.
When you say gaps, what do you mean, sir?
Eh?
When you say there are gaps, the word gap, what do you mean when you say there are gaps?
Something that is supposed to happen
Doesn't happen.
in a certain complete way, but at some point you lose track.
Do we lose track, or it's just not done? Is it possible for us to actually say it as it is? Because, you know, when we started all this conversation...
The
it was
law does, it is not a must that the person who designs should be the one supervising the construction.
Okay.
So some people, developers, get their plan, proper engineer, proper architect, passed through the
approval
local
purposes.
authority. It is approved.
Uh-huh.
When I come to construct, then I look for fundis and I stand there myself to supervise.
Yeah, this guy has built many houses.
Yes. So the board will have all the engineers because they are there on the drawing they designed.
Right.
And they fulfill the requirement for approval.
Right.
But they are not supervising. And that brings us another area of causing for collapse is the ensuring the quality of materials and the workmanship.
These specialists, so go ahead.
Yes, like concrete, if I put in different amounts of water, I get different strength.
Yeah.
So I could buy the right quantity of cement, the right quantity of ballast and sand because it was specified for me. But if I miss on the quantity of water, I get a different strength. So workmanship and quality of materials come to play during supervision to give the quality of
engineer.
building.
What I'm wondering about is when you speak of this, it means this gap is something that is known and understood within the industry.
Yes, and it should be enforced.
Yeah, but I'm going even. I'm talking about something beyond enforcement because the authorities that are supposed to enforce it are there. But why do these professionals let their names be lent to a process? Because something goes wrong, you will be looked for.
Now, my contract was for design. And this happens even for government. You are engaged and somebody says, I would like you to design for me. And since that is a complete stage, I have designed. So it is up to the next person to...
So essentially,
there should be a supervising.
There should be another contract for a supervisor.
So meaning if you, the designer, were to supervise, you need to get a separate contract
for supervision.
For supervision.
Yeah.
I see.
Let's take a break. I have 3 questions.
Yes.
Maybe I have 5, but
you have 5.
And I will take them.
Engineer Patrick Simiyu Wambulwa is the chairperson of the Association of Consulting Engineers of Kenya. This is an association that brings in all the disciplines of engineering into one umbrella body where they look at their professional development, professional business and how the business should be managed and all. And you look at the welfare, right, of the industry, of the sector, of the players in the industry. We are talking about the collapsing buildings, not just in Nairobi and Kiambu, but across the country. The integrity of buildings that have been constructed, that are being constructed across the country, and what we need to do about that. 9:30, time for that quick break. We'll be back shortly with Engineer Patrick Simiyu Wambulwa, chairperson of the Association of Consulting Engineers of Kenya. Engineer, you've told us through the approval process, there is a lay-down procedure to follow. And by the time you're going to seek approvals, you need to have the relevant experts on your side as you're seeking approval. And that's why, using the National Construction Authority regulations, when you put up that signboard there that indicates the project that is under development, it's a commercial building, it's a residential, it's a shopping mall, whatever it is. You'll also tell us who the developer is, you'll tell us who the engineers are, the architect, who's doing the electrical, who's doing all those things. Those will mostly be those that you used at design stage. Now, you also told us that if someone comes to you and they are seeking your services, they'll give you the design contract. They should come back and give you the supervision contract. If they don't give you the supervision contract and you let them go, and you know that they are going to put your name on that signboard, are you not exposing yourself? As a member of a professional association, have you people discussed this?
Yes, we have discussed this, and I would like to, maybe it should have been my first point, to say pole to those who have lost their lives and their properties through this collapse. We feel it, and it is a scenario that we would like as engineers to work towards such events not happening. Yeah. It is true, and we have discussed about it. And these are some of the gaps that I was mentioning. NCA does not approve drawings for development. It does register contractors.
Yes.
So it has a process to certify and say this is a qualified contractor. And then that contractor is under obligation to register that they are doing a project so that they are known. Equally, they should register their supervisors. At the point of registration, there is no notification to the professionals who are involved, who are being registered, to know that I've been registered on a certain project. And so there has been discussion that it should be a digital. Once you put my name that I'm the one supervising,
I should be notified.
I should be notified by email and maybe phone through a WhatsApp, a message coming on my phone that so-and-so has registered you as the supervisor of this project. So that digitized platform, I think, is under preparation, but it has not become effective. So that then I say, yes, it is true I am in, or no, I am not there. So that's an issue.
So that's one gap.
Yes, that's one gap.
And the gap here, as I'm hearing you say, is that there are some contractors who put names of supervisors without the supervisor's knowledge. Okay, tuendelee.
Yeah. Then, where I feel, because when you have a problem, you should say, then where do I start solving this problem?
Yes.
NCA and some local authorities have already marked buildings to say this building are at risk.
Yes.
So I think the most immediate, which of course brings in even the security people, we need to evacuate those buildings. So that if anybody is now living in a suspicious building, those buildings should be evacuated. So that at worst, we can lose the building if it comes down, but let's not lose our life. Yeah. So evacuation, I think, is one very urgent for those suspected buildings.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, go ahead.
Yes. I feel we had a new constitutional dispensation in 2010. That constitution killed municipal councils.
Yes.
Yeah. We went to county governments, but county governments are meant to create municipal, what are being called municipal boards, or create a local government, devolved units within their counties.
Towns and municipalities.
Yes. And in the mix of the challenge of maybe power and resources, these have not been established. And I feel you need the local authority. What does it help? After the approvals by the planning committee, the one that is being created, the new one here, then there was a building inspection section within the local authority. And I'm talking about City Hall where I worked. Their focus was to inspect buildings at different stages. So they would link up with the developer and know when you lay your foundation, they come to check that it is actually according to the design that you have. And there was agreed, because you would have your own supervisors, but their check would be just sufficient to confirm that you are adhering to the building, to the plan. So if you had 4 floors, you could not go to 5 floors. But now that you don't have these municipalities, then you don't have the building inspection unit, and the county government at its headquarters has no capacity, neither does NCA have capacity to check that everybody is adhering to the plan they gave. We are reacting to when there is a complaint. I am living in a building with cracks, then the NCA comes to check. So those are the gaps that need to be sorted. I feel our country urgently and seriously needs to do true bottom-up, where we implement the municipalities so that you bring
that supervision closer.
Yes, you bring because I'm an engineer, so allow me to talk only about municipal engineer, so that you have a municipal engineer close to the people to support their work when they are building.
But right now, even without the municipal engineers present and the towns also active, we still have inspection by the local authorities, by the counties.
They are not adequately resourced.
So they are not enough in number.
Yes, the numbers. Some county governments do not have professional engineers. They have graduate engineers in the sense that they have a degree, but they have not gone through adequate training to take professional responsibility. And professional responsibility means when I say I have approved, it can't collapse.
And that's how serious this thing is that we're talking about, right? That once you put your rubber stamp in terms of an authority behind something like this, essentially means that a multiple-story building will not come crashing down because I have said it has passed the mark in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Except under very extreme.
Like an earthquake.
And above a certain scale.
Right.
A certain, that sweeps everything.
But what we have now, unfortunately, is that the NCA is called in when you've already registered an issue.
Yes.
Is it possible for the NCA to come in at these stages where all these things are happening?
I do not recommend, because it should be, and what we should promote is local government. We developed because we were in a centralized system. NCA is a centralized organization. It should deal with those registration of professionals so that it is national. If I'm registered within the NCA, I can go to Mombasa, I can go to Mandera. So that function should be national. So NCA should deal with the registration of the construction personnel and the registration of contractors and the setting of standards, the building code, for construction.
And then the local authority to deal
development control to approve a plan, to check that whoever is developing is according to the plan. This function is best practiced as a local authority function. So NCA should have the, the respect to stop at a certain point and build capacity in the local authority.
In short, they should evolve.
They should evolve.
No, should remain
It should remain NCA as a centralized and national, but
then other people should just do their job.
Development control
should be the counties.
should be local government function.
Engineer, do I hear you to be saying that...
And that local government, we have not invested in it.
Okay. But again, let me just ask the question. Do I hear you to be saying that approvals for a building are given by the county government?
Yes.
And yet this same county government that gives approval doesn't have a structure or units that can actually supervise what they are giving approval for?
Yes, in terms of numbers of people and attention to...
What about, do they have, for instance, in the... local authority system, you did have municipal engineers.
Yes.
You did have valuers. All these professionals that have to do with the industry existed.
Yes.
Are you saying that they don't exist in the county?
I would say not in adequate numbers, because the municipal engineer had people called works officers.
Yes.
These were people trained to diploma level. They are technicians. And their training was adequate to ensure that every drawing that is approved, when you construct, you keep to it.
They were technicians, but they were trained in the distinctive disciplines that existed.
Yes.
The architectural department had these people.
Yes.
All of them.
So
Yes.
That's why I said there are many gaps. The technical training colleges are still training people and putting them
Into the job market.
into the job market. When they come into the job market, they don't get employment quickly. So they become hustlers
Yep.
and they become innovative. I sell clothes, I make a living. So they are not practicing their discipline. Now, the county government is constrained financially. So they are not employing the numbers. So the discipline of the traditions of the discipline are getting lost.
Right.
You know, the issue of...
And these are gaps. And that's why the counties are not able to check that,
Adequately
that the plan I
enforce.
approved is the one you are following.
Actually...
Yeah. And
Are not able.
No.
Yes.
I actually I feel there's a gap here.
yes, there are gaps.
There are gaps, but the gap here is this, huh?
Yes.
Counties benefit when these buildings are put up, do they not?
Yes,
in more
they
ways
do.
than one.
Yes, they
okay?
do. Yes,
in
they
terms
do.
of revenue, in terms...
And the businesses that
Yes,
come to...
yes. And as a local government, I mean, as a county government,
Yes.
the employment factor
Yeah.
also plays a very, very important
Yes.
role in all these
Yes.
things,
Yes.
okay?
Yeah.
People get paid. So essentially, when buildings come up and there's a multiplicity of them, you're
Yes.
talking about money in circulation increasing. Is that not so?
That's true.
The direct
That's
benefit
true.
exists.
That's true. That's
so
true.
you're telling me that when something has such a direct benefit, they do not take the time and care under the guise of there not being enough money to employ people, not to have the sufficient wherewithal so that this particular sector is well catered for.
And it is within their best interest.
Yes,
Yes.
I don't
Yes.
understand.
Yes, yes. Now, I think if you read the Auditor General's report or the budget controller, the counties do not generate their own revenue adequately.
Actually, they do. It's just that they don't report as such.
So maybe they don't report
No,
as
they
such.
don't. If you can explain the number of people who work for literally every county in this country
Yes.
who don't own a factory, don't
Yes.
own a shop,
Yes.
and yet they're multimillionaires,
Yes.
where do you think the money comes from?
Yes, that is also a gap. Because there's the dimensions of corruption.
Yes.
Yeah.
Corruption and
where
impunity.
people are given, yes, the developer flouts, but is depending on, I will give somebody something to get my project done.
Yes.
But where the county is challenged, their total budget, of course, is constrained, but also it is not released on time.
Okay.
So the officers don't leave their office. They would rather do something.
They sit in the office. So enforcement basically is not happening
Yes.
as it
So
should.
you see, when there is a structure failure, you have, of course, my institution of engineers running there, the engineers board running there, the NCA running there, the county government running
governor.
there, and the government has a department called Building Inspection Units. The national government under the Public Works, they also run there. So I have these 5 agencies running in because there is a problem. But I'm not focusing my resources to put this responsibility of inspection and availing resources adequately for one agency to manage that process. Now, that one agency is what I'm saying is the local authority. So you need a level below the county government called municipality. And I said I talk about engineer only. I talk about municipal engineer only because I'm in engineering. And I put a municipal engineer there.
With enough technicians.
Yes, with enough engineers, technicians and technologists.
Uh-huh.
Because when I go into the area of material testing, then I've gone into technologists, so that now they can deliver the function. And it is not only about buildings collapses, but also providing the necessary services. That
Many
go
of
with
these
this.
buildings that come down, engineer, they are coming down in fairly urban areas.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
And after a building has collapsed, you will hear, for example, there were inspectors who had come here, they had condemned this building, they had said this and the other, but the contractor and the developer continued with the work that they were doing. So it's not for a lack of supervision.
In that case, we have crossed the line into the area of, complying or issues of following the law.
Yes. And that's why I'm
the
heading
impunity.
That's where I'm heading to.
Yes.
So even if you had this municipal engineer with his engineers and his inspectors going round, if the issue is that you are easily corruptible,
Yes.
then they will still be easily corruptible.
Yes.
How do we deal with that? How do you, as professionals, actually distance yourself from this corruption? Because it comes back down to there's somebody who was influenced to look the other way. And it goes beyond the developer just being influenced to look the other way.
So we all need to interrogate these issues. I may not be the one competent to answer, but one of the reasons I feel for the municipal engineering discipline, in the old Local Government Act, the municipal engineer, it was written in the law, passed by Parliament. If anybody was forcing him to go against, he was allowed to register his decision and distance himself. Now, today, those people who are working for local authorities, do they have a law under which
That
they can
protects them.
register their decision? So we need to broaden, so there would be issues of registering a decision that I do not agree, or I can't approve this plan, or if I condemn a building and there's no action, then it should be possible to sue that person,
Sure.
to take them to court the following day, and therefore you need the police to come in to help you to arrest the person and produce him in court.
Speaking of which, looking at, historically, let's just even take the last 18 months.
Yes.
Because, I mean, we wouldn't have to look very far to see the number of buildings that have come down since last year, January, for example. And until now, historical is even Friday.
Yes.
Historical
Yes.
is 2 hours ago.
Yes.
What has
one
been-
of today?
Sure. What has been done in terms of repercussions, consequences for these buildings that have come down where people have lost their lives, people have lost their businesses, the developers themselves have lost their investment?
Yes.
Who has ever been brought to, from your understanding, who has ever been brought to book that somebody is in the docks for having to explain the reason as to why a building came down and people died, murder, people lost their business, theft, people decided to make a decision when they shouldn't have, corruption and impunity? I mean, the rap sheet is very long.
Yes.
What has ever happened? Who has ever, for example, had to pay the consequences of these building collapses that we've seen?
None comes to mind, but I think what happens is that the process takes long. They, as a first action, they normally appear in court.
It begins.
It begins,
Yeah.
but along the way,
Something happens.
it gets lost. Yeah.
And in the meantime, another building.
And
is coming up.
in the meantime, another building collapses.
You know, one has to. One is,
But how do you call? It should not be hopeless, because the best, they say what, the prevention is better than cure.
There is no prevention.
So the prevention is, if the developers can have the culture of the wise builder and say, I would like to follow a process
I want
where
to see.
to safeguard my investment.
Sure.
Yeah. And I think that is the area that has a lot of scope for many to participate, including the media. I was thinking awareness.
Yes.
Of course, what we are doing here is also creating awareness. So there is the need to have programs that increase awareness for developers so that they are wise developers and they are not doing things that collapse.
Right, because a developer can have this wonderful idea in mind, right?
Yes,
And, want to put up the swanky new establishment and maybe doesn't know a thing or three about, all this structural design.
And they also
et cetera.
need to differentiate the value of the different professionals. What does an architect do for me?
And they're allowed
What
to
does-
ask these questions.
Yes, what does a planner do for me? What does a structural engineer do for me? Will I need an geotechnical engineer or not? What does
So
a
the
mechanical
developer-
engineer?
So
What
if I
does
can
an
come back to
electrical
that,
engineer?
the developer
So-
can go to their team of experts, regardless of who it is, and demand for 1, 2, 3. Even if they're just looking at the safety or the structural integrity of this building, they can actually go to this team of people and say, I want to see that due diligence has actually been done, and what has been demanded of us has actually been followed through.
So that teamwork,
do that?
that teamwork to know that I will be part of a team and different people contribute these different things. All of us, as architect engineers, we are taught that, so that I know when I go into something, it is not me.
There's somebody else.
Yes. So our developers should not approach engineers like me when they want to build. They should approach, their entry point should be an architect, because he's picking your dream and helping you to translate it to be. Then the rest of us come in to support that, actualizing
the dream.
The dream. And the engineer is meant to safeguard that it will not collapse. Except
Apart from this proposal,
except we have the risk of climate change coming, except in extreme situations of earthquake or extreme weather conditions. But in normal circumstances, it should not.
A building that has been passed by a competent engineer
Yes,
should stand.
and constructed according to that specification
Should stand.
should stand.
And that's the thing. Constructed according to the specification.
Consider,
of
Eric, the number of buildings that
engineer.
are older than these buildings that we are speaking of, who've been there,
Yes.
which have been there since the previous century.
Yes.
And they've weathered stones, El Nino, El Nina, everything. And they're still standing. So
Yes.
how then do you explain these new buildings? They're not inventing tall buildings.
No, they're not.
Yes, and I think they are not the tallest building.
No, they are
so,
not.
so it
Tallest.
it is the gaps during the construction.
Yes.
Most likely.
Engineer, you've highlighted very many gaps, and we thank you very much for coming. And like you said, yes, we would like to create more and more awareness on the issues that you've raised. So welcome again and again. When we call you again, please come.
Thank you very much.
Engineer Patrick Simiyu Wambulwa is the chairman of the Association of Consulting Engineers of Kenya. We've been talking about the building collapses across the country and what needs to be done to make sure that we have put an end to this. He has given us very many solutions. One, the most important one is let's devolve this whole issue. Take it, give that responsibility to the county governments and let the county governments further devolve according to the law by creating towns and municipalities and ensuring that those ones work.